Hi again, everybody. Welcome into Unanchored Boston. We are so thrilled today. Our show, as always, is brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, and the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We are so thrilled today to have the governor of Massachusetts with us, and Bob Lobel always handles the intros because he's the only non-Harvard guy on this broadcast.
Oh my God.
Handle the intro, okay? So he won't feel bad.
Cut it out. Someday Kent State's going to have a president and you'll all be sorry. Well, okay, Hampton Falls is the place. Ware, New Hampshire is just west of Hampton Falls, west of Goffstown, and north of Haverhill is where Ware, New Hampshire is. But Hampton Falls is where Winnicott is. It's also where Governor Healey went to school. She and I have a lot in common. Both our moms were school nurses. She and I both lived in New Hampshire. And my grandfather was born in Austria, and Maura ended up playing in Austria for 2 years with a professional basketball team because she played and was co-captain of her Harvard basketball team and point guard as it was. But there were no three-point shots back then. So I suppose if there's anybody that can talk about the three-point shooting of today and Caitlin Clark, it would be the governor, Maura Healey. What do you think?
Well, Bob, I'm old. I'm not that old. We had a three-point line.
No way.
Yeah, we had a three-point line in college. When I was in high school, that's when they changed from boys ball to girls ball. That's when it came in midway through high school. But we did have a three-point line. I love the three-point line, right? I mean, it opens up the inside. It's an important part of the game. I think that when I watch the men play in the pros, it disappoints me. There aren't enough big guys who know how to play inside, and the game has become much too about the three-point shot. But back to Caitlin Clark. I mean, so many things to say about Caitlin Clark, but just to see the range. I mean, the logo three. I was watching the men's game. I don't know how many men could hit a logo three.
Nobody.
It's kind of amazing what she's done, and also how the women's game has evolved. But I think three-point shot, it's a great part of the game. Great part of the game. I think it's overused in certain instances, and I grew up playing a much more inside-outside game, and you use the three-point line to open up things inside too.
Yeah, Maura, you were a point guard, and I was too, way back at Swampscott High School back in the day. But when you came down on a fast break and you were the point guard, two other people were filling the lane, going to the basket. Now when you come down on a fast break, they're all running to a spot on the outside. And you stop the foul line, you would throw it in the corner, you throw it to the opposite corner. There's no such thing as an old-fashioned fast break anymore.
Yeah, and I think it misses it sometimes. I mean, great, then you're living and dying by the three-point line, right? But if you're not having a hot night, I mean, you're screwed versus, come down, take the high percentage shot. I mean, at the end of the day, it's 2 points versus 3 points. If you make enough twos, then you don't have to worry about making threes at the end. But Mike, yeah, you and I could talk a lot about sort of as point guards, where the game has gone in terms of some of the fundamentals and the basics. But I agree with you. Everybody should be running the floor, and I'm all still for taking the higher percentage shot.
Spoken like a true point guard, but I would say
a cranky has been.
Bob Cousy, number 14. I got it. It's all circle. It's all connected in one way or another. But one of the great things about Caitlin Clark is I know the 3-point, that's kind of her thing, as she says it in the commercial. Well, that's kind of my thing. But you know what? It's her passing ability and her ability to find the open person. It's remarkable what she's able to. She's Larry Bird in many ways.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I mean, Caitlin Clark has done so much for the game. There are a few things that I love about her. One, she also makes a point in her interviews, even on SNL last night, giving it up.
Wasn't that a great show? Wasn't that great last night?
Yeah, it was awesome. And, one of the things I loved is she shouts out Maya Moore and Cheryl Swoops and Cheryl Miller and Lisa Leslie and, Diana Taurasi. It's like she knows the women's game was great then too. And it just didn't have the market or the visibility. It's certainly bigger, faster, stronger now. But I like that she acknowledges that, so much is possible because of who came before her. That's the first thing. She's always, been about the history of the game. the other thing is she's a teammate, and the fact that she values her assist record as much as she values her field goal record. I mean, to me, that says it all. And I think we saw that, especially down the end when, she wasn't shooting great. But she still found ways to make plays and contribute to so many of the points there. And that's something that I think is overlooked with the logo 3. It's her passing and her playmaking that I think is super, super exciting. And the third thing about Caitlin, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like how many guys came up and talked to me about Caitlin Clark and the women's game, And I think if you polled people, like people can now name women's college players.
I know
It's longer,
it was must see
Can you
TV.
name a men's player?
No, not in college. No, it was must watch television. I mean, it was an appointment television this spring to watch her. That's how great it was.
Maura, let me ask you this: if you were coaching against her or playing against her, how do you defend her? Do you play a box and one? Do you play just a full court man-to-man press, a woman-to-woman press? How do you defend her?
Jesus, I don't know. Far be it from me, right? I'm just a politician, but I guess some observations. She's great, especially going left. Take the left. As a right-handed shooter, it's easier to go left, the balance. So take the left away. You got to put your best defender on her, but you got to be able to be there with a couple defenders. I also think the body. Look at Holy Cross, right? The women. Little bit of body, little bit of physicality. I think that's another thing. So being physical, take away the left, and enough pressure so that she has to give up the ball. I mean, she obviously is aces at finding other players, but make them score. Don't leave it to her. Those are the things. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes in the WNBA. I think she'll be great. I think she'll really excel, having the opportunity to be surrounded by so many talented players, and as she was at Iowa. But it's just a different level. So I'll be curious to see how all this goes.
We have some photos of you, Maura, playing at Harvard.
Oh my God!
We're going to throw one of them up right here, and there you go. Look at that
look
left
at
hand.
The hair.
Yeah.
Right? Jeez.
See, you had to bring up the hair, and I was bringing up maybe the elbow, the right elbow, right there, making sure that nobody gets in there. Is that the old IAB? You weren't in Levites, but when
we were at Levites.
You were.
At that point, we were. Yep, I graduated in '92. It was great place to play. It's still the same gym, but it's just a lot more bells and whistles. We didn't have a jumbotron mic at the time, but a great place to play, and it's been fun to get back there to see games. And I mean, I'm 5'4", right? So I have to the elbow. You got to protect the ball.
No, that was great. It was even from your time in 1992 to today, what has been the biggest change in women's college and women's high school basketball?
The skill. I mean, I think it's, as with everything, I mean, women are, girls with Title IX, like, I'm the beneficiary of Title IX. We're just that much further along. I came up at a time, for example, where girls didn't have their own youth leagues growing up. You played with boys, which was a good thing in certain respects. And also, just speaks to the fact that we just didn't have enough girls and women playing at the time. But I just think people are bigger, faster, stronger. We know more about nutrition, about weight training, about physiology and exercise. The game is so enjoyable to watch. It's entertaining, right? I mean, when you watch the college women, it's entertaining, and they're making a high percentage of their shots. And it's great basketball. And so those are, I think, some of the, I think that's the difference. And then there's just, with that, there's just more focus and more attention. And I think when you have, more focus, more attention, more love, more support, more fans in the stands, more opportunity for marketing, for branding. Obviously NIL is a whole other discussion, but it just as a player, I think it just only makes you want to play even harder and play better. I mean, there's a lot more out there to play for, especially now when you have the opportunity for a career, beyond college. I mean, I graduated when I was 21 from Harvard. There was nowhere to go to continue to play basketball except in Europe. Maybe you go to Australia or you go to Europe. Like that was it. And it's obviously a whole different deal today. And I think that just, also contributes to where the game is at and how women are playing.
Where were you at the time when you decided to go to Europe?
I was trying to avoid getting a real job is what I was.
Well, okay, everybody, okay, we have a lot in common. So,
you know what it was? So I don't know. So at Harvard, they had all these companies come on campus, right? Investment banks, whatever the hot thing was at the time in the early 90s, they interview students. And, I had my own wall of shame going with rejection letters and the like. I had known of some women who'd gone and played. So I basically got myself an agent. I put together some old school VHS tape clips and the like, sent that around. I met with a guy from Turkey. I'll never forget. I flew down to New York to meet with him. I think he gave me $3,000 to sort of lock me into a slot there and, for a team in Turkey. And then, at some point I wasn't hearing back. Things sort of seemed to go sideways. And I ended up going with an offer that I had in Salzburg, and the rest was history. But, that's basically how it worked in those days.
Amazing, really.
Yeah, they buy you. They buy your flight. They put you up in an apartment, in a flat. They give you a car, which for me was this like crappy old van that I also used to drive around like boys and girls players, to coach a couple times a week as part of my contract. Stipend money, and it was great.
When does it hit you? Because we've all done this. When does it hit you? All right, I got to grow up and get a real job. I can't be doing this forever. When did it hit you?
Probably, I'd had enough. I'd had about all the beer and chocolate that I could consume in Europe. Seen a lot of the world that way. Even made it to Russia when I was over there, and I just sort of knew. Again, there was no option really. Women weren't executives in sports really at that time. It's like, what else? I'm reaching my limit here. I'm not an Olympian, so this is it. So I've got to do something. And I sort of thought Mike, I'd end up going to law school. I thought that's what I wanted to do. But that's sort of what led me to come back. Is like, okay, I'm a little kid from New Hampshire. I've seen the world. Let's get out and I've got to do something else. So I regret. I probably would have played one more year. That would have been no harm. I should have stayed one more year. But I ended up coming back. The year I came back, I'm back at Winnicott. I'm a substitute teacher, getting totally disrespected day in and day out. Coaching, I was like the JV coach. I think one of my younger sisters was on the team. So that was also not awesome all the time. But I did that for a year and then went to Northeastern for law school.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you end up at Fenway Park during opening day and talking to David
awesome.
Ortiz. And really, think about it. And I'm sure you do. It's really pretty remarkable.
It's so unlikely, Bob. I never wanted to be a politician. I never imagined that I would find myself in this role, but life happens. And I'm like the luckiest person in the world. Celebrate the marathon tomorrow, Patriots Day weekend. Yeah. To be with the Sox the other day. I mean, you guys remember the 2014. I have to say, just nearly everyone was back to a person. So lovely, so kind, so happy to be back. I think it was a really good day for, Red Sox Nation. We need a little love, and a reminder of what this is all about. What we want to strive towards. But God, I feel so lucky. To be doing what I'm doing, and never could have imagined it.
I can understand that. You think it's not really happening to me. This is like happening to somebody else. I'm just observing this, and it's kind of remarkable. But there you were, talking with Tim Wakefield's daughter. Catching the knuckleball she threw. There you are in that picture right there, Maura. It was the whole thing was great, and they reversed the curse sign. I wondered where was that stored for all these years?
I got to tell you, I'll tell you about
where was that come from?
I'll tell you both of those things. So you may remember 2004, people graffitied that sign on Stero, reverse the curse. They then, I think then they took that sign actually, and it was Governor Romney's time. They put it back in the Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR, some like tool shed, some work shed. It stayed there for 20 years.
I wonder
And
where did
then,
you find that? Right.
and then it was brought to my attention that it was there. And someone had the idea that we should give it back to the Red Sox and present it as part of the 20th anniversary.
Great idea.
So it was great. And kudos to our DCR commissioner, Brian Arrigo, and, the team for getting that out of the shop in Dorchester and making that presentation. We affixed it to the duck boat, rode in. It was cool. It was really cool.
I was living in the Back Bay then, and I remember that sign. It was over the walk bridge, I think, to the Esplanade.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
And it hadn't been touched. It's like the same as it was 20 years ago. So, now it's back on for display. And I have to say, when I was down, they had me come down for the pregame, and we were with the 2004 team, and we had come over on the duck boats for the pregame ceremony. And one of the women from Sox operations brought a mitt and a ball to Maura Wakefield, and she looked at me and she said she was going to throw out the first pitch. And the Wakefield kids, both Brianna and Trevor, amazing young people. It was a really beautiful, poignant day. But she looked at me and she said, will you go warm her up? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, okay. So we walked outside the door, and we're in the bowels, of Fenway Park. And we walked down a little ways away from the crowd, away from everybody. And we just threw. And I was just like, wow, this is like so touching. And this young girl is so brave. She's going to be at BC this year. She's going to be a nursing student. Yep. She's going to come up and do as a nursing student. She wants to be a nurse practitioner. She wants to work in pediatric oncology.
Wow.
Just the poise of both of those kids. So we threw, and then at one point, I was like, "Can you throw a knuckleball?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll show you." So that's how that ended up happening. But
all right. So how did she tell you to throw the knuckleball? To push it?
Yeah, like it's like you got to your fingers are there, right? But then at the release, I mean, I can't do it. Can you throw a knuckleball? It's like you got to just like
you got to almost like a shot, almost like a shot put off your shoulder. Yeah.
Right. And, last time I pitched, I was in 8th grade. I balked. I played pitcher and shortstop for the Red Sox. Actually, I wore number 8 for Yaz. And this is back when the girls, like, you could only play with the boys. And I was pitching, and I balked and scored a runner from third in doing so. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this.
Did you play all through high school softball?
No, I didn't. I actually played tennis.
Oh,
I played tennis. I played soccer, basketball, and tennis. Tennis was my spring sport.
You're a skateboarder. You got to see you're on a skateboard too. That's just...
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you how, when I was in high school, girls basketball, there were 6 players on the floor. 3 of them were in the front court. 3 were in the back court, and the 3 in the back could not cross the midcourt line. Yeah. And you could not dribble more than 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then you had to pass the basketball. I mean, how archaic is that?
I know. It's like, it's unbelievable. And women's basketball was invented here in Massachusetts as well. Of course, Smith College. I mean, the game was invented here. So, I just think about all these women that, I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda, I mean, who were held back because of the constraints of the game.
So a game of horse between you and Charlie.
Can you imagine just playing defense all the time too?
No.
I mean, that would be.
You can't cross half court.
Yeah.
Can you mention that?
Yeah, we wouldn't have lasted.
All right, a game of horse between you and Charlie Baker. Who usually wins?
Well, we only played once, and I won. But it was close. He's got a sweet baseline jumper. That's his favorite. And he's a lefty too.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But
he's got his hands full now.
What's that?
He's got his hands full now.
Boy, I mean, I'm like, that governor was being hard. That's that's next level, dealing with NCAA madness.
So are you moving on to the marathon tomorrow? What's the
well, yesterday, so here's my job is so great. Yesterday I got to stand on a green. Mike, you'll appreciate this because Swampscott, Salem. Salem,
Yeah.
Mass is where the National
Well,
Guard was born.
the musket, right?
Yeah.
And the first
Muster.
muster back then, the colonies, but the 387 years they've been mustering there. I went up there, cannons, salutes, inspected the troops. It's beautiful. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to start off early in Lexington with a reenactment, the battlefield. That'll be great. 5 o'clock in the morning. Then we're going to have the memorial wreath laying at the marathon with Mayor Wu to begin Marathon Day activities. I'll crown the men's winner a little bit later tomorrow morning, and just have a day, where we're celebrating what's great about Boston, what's great about Massachusetts. The marathon, as we know, transcends sports, and it's a day of, it's like, don't you? I don't know. When I watch the marathon, it's like I want to know the story of each person running, because most everybody running, they're running for a cause or a mission or a person or someone they've lost. And it's just like such a powerful, beautiful day. So I'll be soaking that in tomorrow. And also many thanks to first responders and all the volunteers and the BAA and, everybody who works to make this a safe and joyous event.
When you talk about the marathon, and we're talking about women's sports, you can't really leave out Joan Benoit because of what she has been able to do to advance the cause as well.
Yeah.
It's not Jock Semple. Jock Semple had his own world, and women were not allowed to run and couldn't get a number and all that. But Joan Benoit has really transcended. She's one of the best athletes I've ever had a chance to cover.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah. She's from Maine.
Yeah, Bowdoin College. We went through this whole thing of Joshua Chamberlain and everything else. I gave Mike a lesson in the Civil War about Joshua Chamberlain and Bowdoin College and blah, blah, blah. But
Go Polar Bears. No, yeah, I mean, there are so many women who are just, icons of sport. Obviously, Jo Benoit Samuelson is one of them. And again, what she did in marathon transcended marathon. I mean, it was a huge statement for all of women. And so many women have just come before and knocked down doors and made people see athletics and women in athletics in a different light. And I think that's something that Joan did and did really well, and continued to support women along the way.
Absolutely, she was spectacular. Perception and reality, Maura. I asked this question: your perception of the job before you were elected, and your perception after being on the job for quite a while.
Yeah. I was pretty close, Mike. I sort of knew, having been Attorney General for 8 years, a little bit of what it would involve. Some things, though, I didn't appreciate as much. Just, it's. I think when you're governor, people expect you to be able to solve or fix most anything, or at least you have responsibility for most everything. Even if you actually don't, that's certainly the perception. So, there's a lot of weight and stress that you sort of feel because you feel a responsibility. You want to try to help people. And I think that is something that you can talk about it. People can tell you about it. But until you have to be in the room and make those decisions and think about how we're going to handle a certain situation, you don't know it until you're in the reality of it. The other thing is just I miss driving. I do. I like to drive. I grew up, I learned how to drive on a standard, that's my, I like my 5-speed, and I don't get to drive anymore. So I do miss that.
I thought you could tell them you want to drive and could drive.
Well,
I want to drive.
There are limits. Good thing that there are people who exercise better judgment than me some days. So they sometimes need to intervene and remind me that, the office is bigger than me and whatever desire I have to get out on the road.
Hey,
I don't want to keep you too long because I don't want your staff mad at us either, because,
this is so fun. It's so great
to
see you guys.
You believe the two of us, two guys who went head to head for 30 years are now running a podcast as best of friends. It's so much fun. I can't tell you.
Look, we all benefit, and I certainly, I wouldn't say grew up because we're all, the same, but we all,
you could say it.
We watched you, and it's just, I learned how to read this is a true story. I learned how to reading the sports pages of Boston Globe when I was like 3 years old. That's like what I looked at. That's like what I read. So obviously love tuning in, watching both of you. And Boston's a great sports town. I'm hoping, I mean, go C's, go Bees.
No, go C's. We haven't talked about your affection for the Boston Celtics, and maybe that's when they get a little closer, maybe we can come back on and talk about their strategy and their coaching and where that game is transcended to. But they're close. They're really close to making it happen.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting and great to see you guys together. Let that be hope for our nation, right? In this time of division and vitriol and head-to-head.
Lobel, Lynch can do it. Anybody can do it, right?
Governor, thank you so much.
Maura, thank you so much. It was great. You were just absolutely awesome, and we've all been big supporters of yours. I have a sister named Maura, so you're dear to my heart. Yeah. And there we go. All right, thanks, Maura.
Great to be with you. We'll hang out soon.
Good.
All right.